recessive genes, like, for alcoholism, which I obviously suffer from, and whatever, Tay Sachs, multiple sclerosis. So I want a healthy, uh, vibrant, productive child to come into society, and they basically pick out the various attributes that they want for their child out of a catalog, very much the same as somebody shopping, in a Williams Sonoma catalog might pick out, a faucet they might want for a sink.
Yeah,
So
well,
it
we
turns.
got it, we got it. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I'll go over first, and then you can go, Anthony. Yeah, well, people like designer stuff, so sure, people buy designer shit all the time. They buy Gucci, and then they want their dog to be this, this, and this, and they want this. I mean, if I could get myself a little, you know, 30-pound woolly mammoth, little pygmy woolly mammoth, I'd take one. Sure, give me one of those. Cool. Yeah, so that's going to be our nature. So yeah, that's going to happen. That to me isn't like some scary surprise. Uh, Good, bad, evil. I don't know. Would cloning be evil? I mean, to me, you might as well. I mean, you might as well let people clone themselves because then at least it's even going to be closer to them. So at least they're victimizing themselves. It's saying, yeah, I'm going to make myself make all the same fucktarded mistakes again. And maybe this time I'll really hurt myself playing football and be paralyzed for life in a wheelchair. And then I can watch myself drool in a wheelchair. So that'd be even cooler. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people's egos are out of control. The whole having kid thing is ego out of control. So I'm just saying that no matter how it's going to turn in those directions, the argument's just got to be made to get people to find something else to live for than this idea that they can gain immortality by creating another human being and being able to name it and say, look, I made it. It's my human being. Look at it. Aren't you proud of it? Like it's a painting or something. Okay, your life is not a painting. It's not your construction. It's not your gazebo. I mean, it's a fucking human being, you dumbasses. So go ahead, Cosmic Guy.
Well, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you in about a year or 2 years, so it's good to see you again, Gary. But I agree with you on that point. Um, I guess to say it in other words, I don't, and I hope you guys can hear me, can you? Because I don't know if my mic's working properly. Is it? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
hear you
no,
fine.
okay. I don't believe I'm of the same opinion as you, and I don't mean to misrepresent what you're saying. So, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't find that it's appropriate to make human genetics or DNA into a commodity in the sense that we can patent certain genes. And sub-DNA, you had brought up the point about alcoholism and stuff, and that's something that is really kind of interesting to me because I am not of the persuasion that alcoholism is a disease. I don't think, I know there's certainly a disease model for it, and I'm not going to get personal about it. You have your own beliefs about it. I just don't believe that it should be qualified as a disease. It's not what a disease is, as far as I'm concerned. We're obviously different
Yeah, well,
in
the
that.
genetic component is a little bit obscure, but I think it does have a genetic component. But it's the genetic component like gambling or personality disorder or addictive personality, you could almost call it, would be maybe the genetic component. But yeah, I don't, it gets a little bit tricky when obviously Native Americans tend to have a problem with alcohol, controlling their addiction. They don't do the moderate thing easily. So I mean, it's not impossible to argue that there's a genetic component to not an intolerance for alcohol, but a problem consuming it in moderation. Some sort of excessive, reaction. Like almost like an allergy, like they're allergic to alcohol or something like that. But I can see the point that disease is a tricky word to use for it.
There was another point that you brought up about. I just had this really good discussion about genetics and stuff and genes, and eradicating certain recessive genes or what we might call as defective genes. I think that's very tricky. I'm a layman. I'm obviously not a biochemist, but I can say with a reasonable amount of credibility that even the scientists don't know if they turn off this gene and turn off that one, how it's going to affect the entire organism as a whole. And I want to make a point here in regards to sickle cell anemia. My friend brought this to my attention. She said, the gene for sickle cell anemia is actually a healthy adaptation in a place over in Africa where malaria is rampant. But over in New York City, there's not very many mosquitoes, so there's no reason for that gene mutation to have any validity in that environment. So what I'm saying is, do we have any real ability to objectively define what is a defective gene? Because, again, in one environment, it's a healthy adaptation, but in another, it's detrimental.
Well, I think some things like spina bifida or some other bifida, man, I can't even say any words anymore. I mean, I think there are Down syndrome, lots of things where you could just say, nah, there's no upside here. That's all downside. But the trick is that each gene is, they're not just in one little location like this is blue eyeball and there's nothing else tied to it. The trick is they can sort of narrow something down to a sequence and say, okay, it's in that sequence somewhere, So there's a lot of other stuff that ends up getting tagged along. So that's part of the trick too, is when you start splicing this stuff together, you're sometimes splicing in some extra crap, like all of a sudden you're going to grow a tail or some other kind of crap is going to happen because they can't just get a pure, this just does one little thing. Like, it's not like replacing car parts and you just put in a new starter. No, the starter's got some other crap tied to it, It's got a chainsaw and a hacking machine and a guillotine and, there's some other catches here that are tied to it, and you just can't do pure little starter engine thing. Oh, come on, go get a life, you little fucker, with your goddamn spam shit. You really, go get a fucking life.
No, but you definitely raised some good points. You say, Mike.
Sorry, Uncle.
Yeah, Cause, can I just
no, I think
comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so I mean, you're right. Your question, open-ended question, as to whether we understand the human genome in its entirety, I'd say that's a dubious proposition at best. I mean, there's a large chunk of the genome that is so-called junk DNA. Do we really know what that does? I mean, it sounds like genetic surgeons are ready to excise that material, much the same as standard surgeons are ready to get rid of the spleen. Do we really know what that so-called quote-unquote junk DNA does and what it's used for? I have my doubts, and I think that might be, I'm sorry to mix so many metaphors, but I think that might be a bridge too far. And if we were to venture into that territory, I don't know. We've been talking.
No, I think we're doing it though. No, we're going to find out that kind of stuff. Well, good night, Remy. But you really weren't very. You were better as a talker than a commenter. But anyway, we're just barely started this road, and so I mean, eventually they're going to have more and more precision. But there's lots of junk. I mean, our tail is still in our genetics. I mean, we still could find it. Grow a fucking tail. There's all kinds of shit that's still in there. Caveman, really far back crap. So it is junk DNA. We got bacteria DNA inside of us, and we're going to learn what those sequences look like, and we're going to be able to just say, yeah, fuck that garbage, fuck that garbage, fuck that garbage, just causing trouble. Just putting it at risk. So I'm just saying, but I don't even know if they need to go there, to do the important thing, which is make us less vulnerable to cancer or make us less vulnerable to a lot of the psychiatric diseases or complications, or what I mean. There's lots of things they can correct for without even touching that shit.
Right, but the other thing I want
that's a good thing.
Just quick comment, and I'll let you carry on. You mentioned how malaria, being infected by malaria might prevent other diseases, and I had read that also. That must have been like at least 10, 15 years ago. I'd read that report, maybe it was in Scientific American, that becoming infected and subsequently.
But look at the bottom line, okay? Look at how long people live, okay? Malaria kills people. Really, it kills a lot of people. But your average lifespan is gonna be like 25 years old. If malaria is rampant, I mean, it's not a good thing. So, you know, the fact that our immune system is going to be energized by some sort of infection, yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But the point is, if it's going to kill you most of the time, then fuck making you stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's going to kill you 9 out of 10 times, it ain't worth the making strong, is it?
Das macht nicht umbringt, macht mich stärken. That which does not kill us makes us stronger, if I got my German right. Sorry, Anthony, didn't mean to stomp on you. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Thank you for letting me go ahead. I cross south. In any case, I guess what I was going to say was again along the lines of what Gary was saying. All right, take for example, you have, it's been a documented fact that, royalty, you go back to the Egyptians and stuff, and they used to inbreed because they felt like they were somehow superior creatures, and they wanted to keep the purity of the blood within the family to maintain their rule. So, they slept with, their immediate family, which today is disgusting to most of us, and for good reason. It's not so much morally repugnant as it is, genetically. It's bad. It's bad juju to do so. And
well, my cousin was kind of hot.
It's bad.
It doesn't have to be your immediate family.
No, hold on.
A lot of cousins.
No. Let me finish this thought.
Well, I'm just saying it ain't as perverted as you're describing it.
No. The point that I'm trying to make is that there's good knowledge to glean from this, in that if you don't have a wide and diverse gene pool from which you cohabitate or commingle, the chances for variation amongst the individual genetic strands are significantly reduced, wherein diseases begin to develop because, there's a lack of diversity. So, along the lines of what you were saying before, Gary...
But wait, let me just cut you off there, because I have an argument with that basic premise. Like, you can look at the Polynesians, okay? They did a lot of this stuff, too. A lot of inbreeding going on, okay? But it only happens in the first, it happens early, the first people that land on Hawaii, right? There's only 2 of them, or 4 of them at the most, right? There's only a small group of them. They start a new race of people, basically. And so over time, that genetic narrowness is an advantage in a way, because now they can adapt to a new environment very rapidly. Okay, their inbreeding creates more mutation, so more chance of positive improvement and more chance of adaptation. So the first North Americans came here with 5 females, from what I understand. I mean, the whole North American races were all based on 5 females that crossed the land bridge. So, very small pool to start with, but it's all fine once you go out a few hundred not even 100. When you go out a few dozen generations, you're going to balance again and become very healthy, and now you're doing it from a better start, where the first population now was very strong because they had to endure hardship. You know what I'm saying? So you've almost gleaned out a lot of bad genetic material, and so you have that benefit that everything built on that is like its new start. It was like it's a new foundation for the house. And so in a way, in the long run, incidences of that blue blood scenario can be healthy. I mean, it's probably what creates speciation. I mean, it's probably what created things like jaguars and leopards, and the variations on that are new species, but what I'm saying, they aren't too far from an original type or kind. but that's probably how that's required, is through a process like that where a